Today we're going to be talking about changing spaces and places, and we're going to look at some ideas about place, defining it and the complexities surrounding it. This is part of 2A of the course where it talks about trying to define place and the concept of space versus place. So we'll come on to space a little bit later on. So we can think of a place as a physical location, but place means more than just a physical location. It is often associated with meanings. And the main thing to think about when we think about humans is it's the way in which humans make places, and they are the ones that kind of make places different from each other. So I've put up a picture of Greenland here, and I'm going to come back to that in terms of a location, but also something more. So a basic definition is that a place is a proportion of geographic space whose identity is viewed as being distinctive in some way. That means places are different to each other. It essentially means that an area humans have given meaning to. So Greenland is a place because we have given meaning to it. So Greenland can be a place on many, many levels. It can be a residential place because people live there, but it also has meaning in other senses. It's a political place. The Danes own it as their territory, and this gives them a claim to Arctic resources, what we did in Power and Borders about exclusive economic zones. So it gives them the potential to get resources from the Arctic Ocean. So it has political importance, it has a political meaning. It's also a scientific place because scientists from around the world go to study the glaciers and the changes in the glaciers in terms of climate change. So we can say that places can have multiple meanings, but also that these are the kind of meanings that humans have given to this location. Slightly different from space. Space is that area between places. So it's the kind of places that we haven't really given meaning to. An example is if I look at the North Atlantic, which was where Greenland is, this is an area that for many people isn't really a place, it's a space. It's because people travel over it, they don't really spend any time in it, it doesn't really have any meaning for them. If I'm going to New York on holiday, I travel over it in a plane, so it doesn't really have any significance to me. We'll come back to that slightly later in other lessons. What makes up a place, though, is that there can be lots of different factors that make up a place. So, first of all, there is the physical location. That is kind of coordinates that I can get on a map. So I've given the coordinates here, the GPS coordinates of Baghdad. That is an actual physical location where it is on the map. The locale is another bit of what makes up place. It's the kind of physical setting. So it's what the place looks like and in the way in which that place looks and people interact in that space. So if I use the example of Baghdad again, if I just look at the GPS, it doesn't really tell me much about it. It tells me where it is, but it doesn't tell me that there's mosques and markets. It's even got a green zone, which is related to the kind of area, the military area in Baghdad. These are all kind of the actual physical bits of the area that make it the way it looks and these are the places in which people interact. The last bit is the sense of place. So this is more subjective. This is the kind of feelings and emotions that a place can provide. And these obviously are very personal to people and so completely change depending on the person. So we can say they are very subjective. So Baghdad, it's a place for some people that's a war zone. If you're a soldier, that's a place where you've been sent to go and fight. For people that have lived there for generations, it's their home. As in a wider sense, it's a kind of a cultural centre for Islamic culture, and some of the greatest achievements in science in Islamic culture actually were formed in Baghdad. So when we look at a place, it's made up of these three components: location, locale, and sense of place. They are all the bits that give meaning to a place. We can also look, when we're looking at local places, and we're going to have examples that you need to learn of this, there are different characteristics that make up that place. They are what gives the place its uniqueness, its identity. So one of them can be the physical geography. We can see two contrasting bits of physical geography here, a flat floodplain on the left and hilly kind of hills on the right. Physical geography can be everything from altitude, the geology, the topography. These all could give a distinctness to a place. Similarly, the demography, the type of people, the structure of the population, so the ages of the people, are there more women than men? Ethnicity of people, is it quite multicultural or is it quite homogenous? They all make up a place's identity and what make one place different to another place. We can also look at the social economic conditions. So is it a wealthy place? Is it has high employment and lots of income? Has it got high levels of education? If we looked at Oxford, we would say it's an area of lots of graduates, high income, high employment levels. But if I looked at other cities, even just down the road at Swindon, probably wouldn't have the same amount of graduates, wouldn't have the same employment levels or income. We can also look at cultural factors. So I've given some examples here. That can be everything from religion. So there's a man there who's a Sikh. It might be that you have certain religious groups are dominant in certain areas that make it unique. It might be local traditions. On the right-hand side there, I've got a picture of the cheese rolling competition in Gloucestershire. It's a weird local tradition where they chase a cheese down a hill and break their legs and the consequences. But that is unique to that area. That is what makes that place unique. On the left-hand side, I've got an example of societies clubs. It's Women's Institute. So these are a local organisation of women that kind of do baking and sewing. It's slightly more traditional, but if those are in an area, that would say something unique and distinctive about that area. Built-up area. We again, I've got examples here of how the built environment could be distinct. So we've got pictures of slums. We've got pictures of houses in the rural Faroe Islands and also Georgian houses in London. So the style and age of the buildings, how close they are together in terms of density and what they're made out of, they all tell you something unique. They're a characteristic that will make you something interesting about that place that will make it different from somewhere else. And lastly but not least is how politics is involved. So how local and regional and national governments, but also local interest groups. So we've got an interest group where they're trying to save their green belt from being overrun. Boris Johnson obviously is the national government. He will have an impact on places by the policy he makes. And I've put a picture of Andy Burnham there who is the mayor of Liverpool. He will have local impacts that will maybe affect Liverpool that would be different than if we were in Oxfordshire, where we would have Oxfordshire Council who would make different changes to us. So we can see that all of the decisions made by these groups will have an impact and an influence on the identity and the characteristics that make up this place.